Hey everyone, and welcome to The Graph. So today we're going to be doing a code walkthrough of an AI chat app that I just finished building, which is built in JavaScript, Node.js, which is JavaScript, Neo4j, and Langchain's JavaScript and TypeScript specific framework. So for this application, before you get your hands on the keyboard, I want you to know that you're going to need two different things. So one of those things is an OpenAI API key, which you're going to need to get directly from the OpenAI website. And then second, you're going to need the credentials for a running Neo4j database. So you can either sign up for our free, completely free and hosted Neo4j instance at neo4j.com, or you can run an instance locally also for free on your machine via the Neo4j desktop application. So go ahead and pause this video here and then come back when you have both. Sweet. All right, for those who are already all set, here you can see in the IDE that I have a minimum Neo4j LangChain application. So I have environment variables here at the top of the file, which you can then and should then swap the information out and put into your actual .env file. But it's only here right now for visibility. So this is in fact a security vulnerability. Please do not commit your environment variables into your plain text code. Always put them in a git ignored, for example, if you're using git.env file. So, but if we were starting this entire application from scratch, we want to install the dependencies that we'll have listed on line 7 through 9. You'd want to install those ahead of time. But again, because I've already pre-built this application, we're just going to skip that part. All right, so next, after we've installed our dependencies, next we're going to look at taking a look at this driver instance here. And I like to think of drivers as a restaurant, which is orchestrating lots of little different processes. And then we have, so the driver, as you can see here, is orchestrating the accessing the Neo4j URI, which is the information, the credentials that you would get from the Neo4j database, and then the password, and then the username, etc. So driver is the restaurant that's orchestrating things. And then I would describe a session, a driver session, as when you're in a restaurant that orchestrates all the things and you're actually just sitting at a temporary table, okay? So I'd say that the table is your session because it's yours for now, but you have to give it up at the end of the night. All right, so that's one way that I like to describe drivers and sessions for folk who are new to those concepts. And then we'll also get into these things called queries, and I'll get into them in a little bit. But first, let's talk about, we're going to be creating the driver session, and then we're going to initialize a new OpenAI instance using the model ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo, and then setting the temperature to 0. So usually 0 is a less creative response from an LLM, and 1 is complete freedom for the responses that are coming out of your LLM. And we're hoping to keep this strict. So we're trying to keep it with a temperature of 0, as you can see here. All right. So moving on, we're just going to do some logging there. And then moving on, we actually get to where we're loading in the data. So when we load in the movie data, we're going to load it into a session, and that information is going to come from a CSV file via a Cypher query, okay? So the CSV file is here, not the whole Cypher query, but the CSV file here is right here, currently highlighted. I'm not going to follow it because it's going to take us out of where we are, but it's going to take information from that CSV file via the query. This entire code is called a query. And a query, like I was mentioning before, is like when you're sitting at the restaurant, driver, when you're sitting at the table, session, and then your query is actually sending in your order. So the query is the sending in of the order at a restaurant. That's actually going to the driver, which is going to try to fulfill that information or help fulfill that information. Okay, so we have our query, and I'm just going to walk us through this Cypher code really quickly because not everyone is a Cypher expert. So through the CSV file that we have here, it's going to go through the rows of the CSV file and then create a movie node, and this merge code here, it means merge equals like create when it doesn't already exist. So it's going to create a movie node, and then going to also take the ID from the CSV, and we're going to tag that as the ID here in the graph database. So once we have that movie node with the ID in it, we will set the movie.title, that's m.title is movie.title. We're going to take the row.title in the CSV, and we're also going to take the IMBD rating and set that to the row IMBD rating in the CSV. And so after that, we then loop through all that information. So for each actor in this row of actors, we're going to merge, another way for saying we're going to create a new person node with the name of that actor. And we're going to create, if it doesn't exist already, the person node with a acted in relationship to a movie node. And so as you can see, if you're new to Cypher, it's kind of coming together. It's kind of making sense. Cypher is really great for translating natural language to Cypher, or it's pretty inherent in trying to understand, okay, like this is how you would say something like this in English, and this is how you would say it in Cypher. They're pretty similar sentence structures, which is pretty cool. These are not sentences, of course, but it's pretty similar structures. And if you've used SQL before, you can see some similarities between Cypher and SQL as well. So we're going to log all of that information, and then here comes the actually fun part. We're actually going to create our asynchronous ask database function. So we'll start off with the asynchronous function called askDatabase, and we should remember later that this is our core function. So it's going to take in the parameter, which is the user's question, right? I just console log that question just for logging purposes. And then we're going to actually create a prompt. So we're going to create a prompt for the LLM, and we're going to ask the LLM to actually generate a Cypher query for that user's question. Okay, we're going to generate a Cypher query for that user's question with a schema, which is going to have movie nodes, a title, and an IMBD rating. Let me highlight them on the code as well. The schema is going to have movie nodes with title and IMBD rating. It's also going to have person nodes with the name and then acted in relationships. And we're going to make sure that we're returning only the Cypher query for that question. All right. So then we're going to save that information in a response. So we're going to take that prompt, invoke it from OpenAI, and then save that to a response variable. And then we're actually going to go through that response, trim it down for any extraneous syntax, and save that as our final query. And I just logged that query just to have it. And then we're going to finally execute and display those results. So we have our query, it's on the session, we're going to save that as a result, and then we're going to map through all of that result information, save that to this data variable, and lastly, we're then going to cycle all the way back, and we're going to invoke on OpenAI this answer prompt, if you will, in which we're telling the LLM, answer this question, which was the user's original question, in one sentence, and include all the data that we just got back from the secondary query, and answer all of this in one question at one time. And I log that content information, and if it breaks, we're just going to catch it with an error. So lastly, and this is the incredible part, lastly, we actually can ask the database. So finally, we can run the ask database methods, and we'll see here that I have a couple questions here. So I didn't know what's in these databases, so I'm just going to ask it. So for some of my favorite movies that I've had. So what was the plot of the movie The Rabbit-Proof Fence? It's one of the best movies I have seen in my life. That's one of the ones that I'm telling people, this is a life movie, like one that you have to see in your lifetime. So The Rabbit-Proof Fence, what is the plot for that movie? Another question that I ask is, who directed Paris is Burning, and what was the documentary about? I've always heard of this documentary. I personally know it because I've watched it before many times. Incredible documentary. You have to watch that one as well. And then lastly, which movies have Sidney Poitier, the incredible actor, what movies has he acted in? So lastly, remember everything that I said, whatever opens, we have to close. So lastly, we're going to close our session, and we're going to close our driver as well. So we're doing all this work. Let's run it. Let's test it. So I'm going to open up a new terminal, and let's run this node index.js. It's working. Woo! Okay. everyone. So as you can see, you have a working JavaScript application that's talking to LLMs. We're building AI applications using JavaScript and Graph and Neo4j. So let's get into some of these responses to the questions that I had looked at. So what is the plot of the movie The Rabbit Proof Fence? Again, I know all the plots because I've watched all the movies. So the plot of The Rabbit Proof Fence is it follows 3 Aboriginal girls who escape from a government settlement and embark on the long journey home along the Australian rabbit proof fence. Now, for those who've never seen the movie before, I bet you thought it was about rabbits. No. This is about conquering some of the harshest conditions that you can conquer trying to get back home to your family, okay? Incredible movie. So the next question that I asked, and that's correct as well, which is incredible. So the next question that I asked, Paris is Burning, what is it about? Paris is Burning was directed by Jenny Livingston, and the documentary explores ball culture, okay? Ball culture in New York City and the lives of African American and Latine, LGBTQ individuals involved in the scene at the time. So also a life documentary. You have to watch it. So the last question that I asked, which movies have Sidney Poitier acted in? And the statement, which is also correct, Sidney Poitier has acted in movies such as Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, To Serve with Love, To Serve with Love, boom, 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 boom. All right, 1967, y'all need to get on your older movies. And then lastly, The Heat of the Night. Okay, so again, thank you so much for joining us, Neo4j and the entire team, in building out a JavaScript-based LLM application using Graph and JavaScript. The last thing that I want to say for y'all is that if you want to learn more about building out applications using JavaScript and Graph, and building them to create context-rich AI applications, then check out our completely free interactive Graph Academy courses where we'll all learn together by building relationships. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.